Hello and welcome to Inetta and Friends. We are so honored to be in Kingstree, South Carolina, my hometown, with one of my very best friends in school, Dr. Wandy Wallace Taylor, who is also a resident native of Kingstree, South Carolina. We're here at C. Williams Rush Museum of Art in Kingstree, South Carolina. I am so glad to have you, Wandy, with us today.
Well, thank you so much.
It is a pleasure. It's a pleasure. We go way, way, way back.
Now, how many ways way back are you going to have? Okay.
It's just so amazing what you have done during your time away from Kingstree. We have not seen each other in such a long time, but I've been trying to keep up with everything you're doing, so it's all good. We're here today to talk about her book that her and her husband co-wrote together. It's called The Imperfect Storm: Racism and a Pandemic Collide in America. Such a timely book. How long you have been working on this book?
Well, believe it or not, it was less than a year.
Oh, okay.
It was less than a year. We started working on the book right at the start of the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we used that time to start writing.
Yeah, you
yes.
had to write the book.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting because you and I both, we were a product of integration.
Yep.
When integration came to South Carolina, more importantly to Kingstree, we actually were the first class to graduate from Kingstree Senior High that it went all the way through racism, through the integration, and through we bared a lot of pain and a lot of transition during that time. Was it anything that you brought back to your remembrance, being such a part of the integration?
Absolutely, absolutely. Even in the book, one of the things that we started with is the past.
Mm-hmm.
You know, reflecting on our past. You know, it's very important that we remember our past because without that, you don't really understand the dynamics of what has gotten us where we are right now.
That's right.
So, you know, during the pandemic, my husband and I, you know, everything shut down. So you sheltered in place.
Right.
And all we had, you know, couldn't go anywhere, church, you know, schools. Everything shut down. So we were sitting there and looking at each other. It's like, okay, this has got to be more than this. So we really started talking and just reflecting because both of us are educators and we just had different kinds of experiences with that. But as I started talking with you a little bit more about our background as far as our experience with segregation and then our experience with integration, and at that time, it's something I'll never ever really forget. And I'm sure everybody, I see many of our classmates here have their own, you know, version and personal experience with it. But what I do remember, and in fact, coming here to Kingstree, passing, I was pointing out to my husband because he's not from here, but looking at Anderson, okay, and how that's where we met.
That's where we met at
went to school,
W.M. Anderson Elementary School.
Anderson Elementary School, and at that time it went through 6th grade, right? And then I don't know, when we were younger, for some reason that seemed like a longer distance between Anderson and Tomlinson. But I realized it's right there. It's right together. What used to be Tomlinson High School. And then we went to Tomlinson basically from 7th grade to 12th grade. Those were the two schools.
Right, exactly.
And I can remember Mr. Green, Mr. Green, our principal, calling us all into the gymnasium. And it was about, I think it was 69, it was right at the end of that year, and telling us what was going to happen the next year.
Exactly.
And how we would have a new school, and we would all be together, and, you know, I don't know that it resonated clearly at the time.
We were excited, but we were afraid too.
Right, we were excited, we were afraid, we didn't know what to expect. and then it came. You remember that?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was a little tumultuous.
Yeah, it was. It was very much so, and I got a big portion of it because I was a bus driver, and my bus was completely Caucasian because my route was Boogie Bottom in Sandy Bay. Yeah, Sandy, and so I was the only black person on the bus. Everybody else was Caucasian, and I remember the day that the riot broke out.
Yes.
You remember that?
Ooh, yeah. Yes.
I had to have police escort because my bus was completely white. And so I had a police officer in front and a police officer in the back as I made my route, you know. Yeah. So we went through some stuff.
We had National Guard at the school. Yeah. I can remember, was it 3 principals before?
It was 3 principals
before our first year.
Right, exactly.
I mean, the first one left, the second one was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And then I don't even remember who the third one was.
I don't know. I'm thinking Mr. Godwin. I'm thinking that's who it was. Okay. I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was, you know, a lot of times, you know, as an educator in schools, our kids think this was so long ago. And at the school that I was principal, many times when they were studying the civil rights movement or anything like that, the teachers would ask me to come and talk to the kids. And I can remember they would go, "You were alive?"
Right, yeah.
You know, and this wasn't that long ago, but in their minds, it seems so long ago.
Right.
Which really brings back to the point of the book. We start with the past.
Yeah.
We have to start with our history.
Right.
So that we really truly understand where we've been and understand the struggles that have gotten us where we are.
Exactly. Because once you have lived through something, you can tell the story. You can tell it better than anyone else. Yeah. You can tell it, you know. So I'm very, very proud of you for that, godly proud of you for that. And your husband, who also, we want to talk about him, James Taylor, who also is an educator, right?
Yes.
And both of you own an education consulting group. Now, what does that entail?
Well, once we both retired from education, and let me go back just a little bit before that. Coming up during that time, yes, it was education that a lot of people were choosing to go into. You know, when you have a parent as an educator, aunts and that educators, and my husband and I were just talking about how back then teachers were revered. Teachers were held in the highest regard and esteem. And there was just such respect for being a teacher and an educator. But in all honesty, when I finally decided what to do after I graduated from college, I veered away from education. I did not start it. I wanted something different. I wanted to, it just had to be more. It just seemed like it was already established. So I actually went into corporate, and I worked in that for 15 years. So I went the long route.
Right.
And so I eventually ended up back in education. And so after spending 23 years in education, I've been a school counselor, an assistant principal, a director of early programs, and a principal. Once I retired in 2016 from public education, and my husband retired for the second time again, we started our education consulting.
Okay.
And so what we do is we work with virtually anyone, districts, school districts. We've done conferences, workshops, and you know, so we get calls or we get business through our company.
Yeah. Okay. And you said something so key. It reminded me as well that you came from a family of educators. Your father was actually my 6th grade teacher, and we were talking about earlier how we got hit with that ruler, and then I don't know if there was a belt too. I don't remember the belt, but I remember the ruler, and that's against the law now. But, you know, we turned out okay.
We turned out okay.
We turned out okay.
We turned out okay. Yeah.
So it's really, and today it's so different.
Oh, yeah.
So very different than what it used to be.
It is, because I think, too, during the time we came up, now, you know, a lot of times, you know, there are pros and cons about integration, okay? But what I do remember, you know, it wasn't like it's bad. It wasn't all bad. So I really want to highlight the fact that one of the things that we experienced, we had a community behind us.
Yes,
everybody. I mean, I walked down the street. I know your daddy.
Yeah,
if you do
you
something,
better behave yourself.
So
that's right.
We had a community, and you knew that your teachers truly cared about you. They cared about your. I mean, maybe not when you were getting your, you know, at the time, but they cared about us. And I think because of that caring, we knew they were looking out for us. They wanted the best. They expected the best. There were high expectations. You better straighten up. You better speak like you, you know. So all of those things came into play, and it wasn't just the parents. It was everyone was your parent.
It's like the African proverb: "It takes a whole village.
It takes a village
to raise a child." And so we had that village. We really did. You know, we had a great connection to the church as well.
Absolutely.
You know, and a great connection to just about everybody in the school. The teachers knew your parents.
So we just talked about it.
That's the foundation.
That's the foundation.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to dig more into this book, The Imperfect Storm: Racism and a Pandemic Collide in America. We're talking today with Dr. Wandy Taylor. So stay right there. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to Inetta and Friends. This is our second segment. If you're just joining us, in the first half of our show, we have been talking with Dr. Wandy Taylor of Georgia by way of Kingstree, South Carolina. And before we went on break, we were talking about her book and some of her personal experiences. But one thing that I just realized that I kind of skipped over was the fact that you are a mother of 2 children. Is that correct? Boy and a girl.
You remember?
I remember. And also, you are from a very large family.
Yes.
Exactly. How many sisters and brothers do you have?
I have 7 brothers and 2 sisters. So it's 10 of us, and I'm the oldest.
And you're the oldest of 10 children.
Been teaching a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, we're old. It's okay. But
speak for yourself,
old gracefully.
Yes.
But your siblings are also professional. All of them are professionals, correct?
Everyone has gone into college and careers and have been successful.
Wow.
And, you know, all of them are grown and gone and have families of their own and are grandparents, you know. Time moves on.
Time moves on. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What do your children do?
Both are in education.
In education. See?
Both of them in education. And between my husband, Jim, and I, we have 5. He brought 3. I have my 2.
And you have your 2.
And he has a daughter that's also in education.
Oh, wow.
So he spent 30 years in education, 40 years
Caught
now.
the bug.
Yeah, so it is definitely rooted in our DNA.
Right. So I just wanted everyone to know that that you are family oriented.
Absolutely.
That you are rooted and grounded in your family, and that you are a mother, and you have children, and you are a wife. So what we want to do, you're a grandmother as well, correct?
Yes.
Grandmother as well.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit more about this book. I wanted to talk about systemic racism. Okay. And I've been hearing that a lot. We're going through, it's not anything new. is just because now we have phones with video cameras on them that we are seeing and hearing, and we got social media, so that means we get the news quicker than we used to, but it's something that have been going on forever almost.
Yeah.
As forever. And we just hear about it more. What is, especially during this time, what does it mean, systemic racism?
You're right. First and foremost, it has been around for a very long time. This is nothing really new.
No.
So the way we describe it in our book, we even have a model that kind of lays it out. So think in terms of institutions or systems, and we point out 5 major systems that we focus on: the criminal justice system, education system, employment, health, and housing. So these are the 5 areas, and these are services that we all depend on. Our lives are intertwined with needing access to all of that. So when we think in terms of these systems, of these institutions, many of these are white controlled and and have just been around, and it's rooted in biases. So when they were established, that's pretty much how it was established. So the other part of it is how they interact with different people. So in all honesty, you have white privilege, from these institutions that remove these obstacles from your life, which creates an advantage. So you go to a bank, or you go to the hospital, the treatment, different institutions, it's all about the actions and the treatment and the decisions that they operate under, their practices. So when those practices are done with an advantage in mind, you have advantage outcomes. When those practices are done and treatment of black and brown people are handled very differently, or it's rooted in bias or discrimination, then you have a disadvantage. So that's what creates this gap between the advantage and the disadvantage. And it's nothing necessarily based just on what people's abilities are, or what they qualify for, or what they can or cannot do. The racism, the systemic racism, is rooted in these institutions. So it's not just about an individual being a racist or people being prejudiced. Those are individually based. I mean, you can have bigots, you can have people who are prejudiced, you can have discriminations in different things. But when the whole system is rooted in it, then it creates this disadvantaged group and this advantaged group that continue to be perpetuated. And that's why we continue to have systemic racism.
Okay. How do you propose that, what's going to happen to make the system change?
And you're hitting it right on the head. Because until and unless we dismantle systemic racism, racism is going to continue. Like we said, this isn't new. None of this is new. We've been dealing with racism for 400 years. And what the pandemic, which kind of led us to our title almost, when the pandemic hit, everything stopped, everything slowed down. And basically what that pandemic did was just reveal a lot of the things that were already there. It was just pretty hidden. There's covert and overt behaviors. Overt, you see violent behavior, and you attribute it to KKK or violent groups. That's how it used to be. Very blatant, very in your face.
Very in your face, exactly.
And even though some of that subsided or became hidden, we still had it in a covert, in a more of a quiet way, and that's where that's where in these institutions, someone can be qualified for a loan. For a bank, you have two people. Both may be qualified, or if you're black, you could be qualified, have a good credit, and it may or may not be able to get that loan. And then others could have, or white could have, not so great credit, and but obstacles are removed to kind of help you along.
That's right.
And that is not new. That is a fact. That has been going on.
The scoring is different. Once you put in African American, the score changes when you go to
exactly. And the thing is, we may never really know all the ways it occurs. All we know is that why is it that we continue to have disadvantages, and a lot of that is through the system.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I see. You talk about the pandemic, and it's part of your subject matter through your book. But one thing the past president has taught us, and I won't call his name, but it has taught us that things have not really changed.
No.
That racism is still kind of up in our face, but it's disguised, it's camouflaged.
That's the word we use. That's the word we use.
And we don't really realize it until you go, oh, okay, that's racism.
Right.
That's something, So that has taught us that, and the pandemic, a lot of people even have gotten different health cares. Different.
That's one of the institutions.
That's one of the institutions. So it has actually affected that institution. So
it impacted education. What it revealed when teachers suddenly had to pivot from in-person to the computers online. We saw it ourselves. We were there. Our daughters teach, and our grandkids go to school, and it was like suddenly, they had to figure all of this out. It's kind of like they were building the plane while they were flying it, trying to figure the whole thing out.
That's right.
But what it revealed is that it's always been there, but there were children and groups that were disadvantaged that may not have had computers at home, or laptops, or Chromebooks,
or even have internet service. That's right.
And by the time they figure this out, how much time has been lost? How much further behind have our children fallen when they were already behind?
That's right.
And not receiving the kind of services.
Now it got even further behind.
Absolutely.
Because they don't have the necessary tools.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's one thing that it has taught us. The imperfect storm. In our last few minutes that we have, that topic itself has struck me. Where does the imperfect storm
come from? Good question. So, you've heard the term the perfect storm. Everybody's heard the perfect storm. And when you think of a perfect storm, most people think of weather-related, situations where you have two maybe opposing forces that collide and create some disruption in the atmosphere, a tornado or a hurricane. So that we think in terms of that. When we started talking about the pandemic, and after George Floyd's murder that we all witnessed, we all saw it.
Right.
It'll never leave my mind how it happened.
That's right.
And the racial unrest worldwide as a result of what we saw.
Yes.
In the middle of a pandemic, people were out protesting.
Yes.
And we sat and we were watching this in real time.
Right.
That was the collision. So that was the collision. And the reason it's imperfect is because as a result of this pandemic, it simply revealed all the imperfections that were existing already in our society.
Exactly.
So that was what we talked about, and we there were several iterations, but it made sense. And so putting it all together, the subtitle also says how it impacted education and how to fix it. We focus mostly on education because we are educators. But
exactly.
we did not leave out those other institutions, but we focus mostly on that. The how to fix it part came from our 12-year-old granddaughter, Taylor. We kind of had everybody have a little input. We asked her opinions about what does she think is going to be for the future, for their generation, as it pertains to racism.
Right.
And she said, well, we'll do a better job. We'll fix it.
Wow. I love that. I love that.
True story.
Yeah, because it's not as important to them, the color of their skin. They just want love.
They just want to be accepted.
That's right. And yeah. So yeah, she's absolutely right. They will probably fix it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I have enjoyed this so much. This book, if they want to purchase, where do they go?
You can go to our website, Taylor and Taylor Education Consultants. You can pull that up. But the website is tnteducationconsultants.com. That will bring you to our website, and that's where you can actually publish the book. Publish the book. You can purchase the book. We have information about the publisher directly, or if you like getting your books from Amazon, you can go to Amazon and find it as well. And Barnes and Noble, you can find the book.
Okay.
So there's lots of
avenues
to be able to get the book.
Also, you can go to our website, women, the letter N, the word power.org, and there will be a link to purchase this book. Going to Dr. Taylor's website, and that's women, the letter N, the word power.org, womenempower.org. And if you want to sow into the ministry, you can also do that through our website. We thank you so much for joining Inetta and Friends, brought to you by Women Empower Ministries. Tune in same time next week, same station. May God bless you, may He keep you, and may the heavens continue to smile upon you.